So this is quite a lacquer one. This is our 44th Story Cellar session. And this, I'm going to, just for the people that haven't been on this before, this was born out of COVID. And when we were sort of isolating before lockdown, I got sent a picture of wine with a landscape, and they said, Harry, tell us a story about this wine. And it was in that moment that we decided, no, why don't we get a group of people together and we go tell them which wines to buy at Pick and Pay. Joy will remember which wines to buy at Woolies. And so we had 14 wines. And then I said, okay, what we'll do is we'll tell the story of these wines every second day within lockdown, because we thought that lockdown was going to be a month.
21 days they promised.
21 days. So we could have got through the 21 days and we could have socialized. Now what happened was, it wasn't 21 days, but we started the first one and no one knew how to use Zoom, and it was talking over each other and it was crazy. And now we're all professional. By the third one, we had Dirk on from Lavinia, and he was the first winemaker on. And then from that, it just started. And we had the winemakers on. There was only one or two after that we didn't have the winemakers on. And sometimes we had the winemaker and the owner, and it was pretty incredible. Anyway, so that went on. It was called Love in a Time of Corona. Someone in the group said, let's call it Story Cellars. And so we did. And what's nice about this story is that Story Cellars started and we started telling the stories. And it was through me collecting stories of winemakers that I was chatting to a lady called Karen Wiltshire, and she runs the Constantia wine route. And through that conversation, she asked me to be the storyteller for Constantia. And in doing that, I had to come up with a story. So I had to interview, chat to all the winemakers, all the farm managers.
That's
where I met Megan. Yeah. And now she, in turn, is back on full circle into Story Cellars. So this is a great thing. And so that's how I met Megan. Yeah. Now, this is all about telling the stories. We've got wines. We'll get into the wines. But let's just start. I want to know, before wine, where did you grow up? Your schooling? What early year nature or nurture made you who you are?
Sheesh, I think that's a tough one. So many questions. I'm trying to remember them all. Did one of his quick fire things for the Artisan app, and it just completely flooded my brain. Basically, hello. Yeah, so I think from that perspective, I've always been a little wild thornberry. I hope you're going to top me up as well and be a gentleman. This guy's just out to pouring for himself. But no, I think growing up, my biggest dream has always just been to be Steve Irwin. I think up to the point where I was embarrassingly 16 years old, my parents would ask me, I would go, no, I'm gonna be Steve Irwin. You know, I've got countless videos of my cousin and myself running around the garden, pretending to film each other, and finding little geckos and things, and just really enjoying the wildlife that our parents' gardens at that point, I think, could provide us. There wasn't a lot of wine in my history, ironically. I've always grown up in and around the winelands. So I was born in Paarl, went to Somerset West, then ended up in Stellenbosch. But how I ended up in wine, I think, was just, I landed with my butt in the butter, but it was a bit of a naughty story. So I really had no idea that anything like winemaking existed. I knew it as a beverage that my parents would sometimes have. We weren't that kind of family that had wine at the table really growing up. They enjoyed it, but it was just one of those things. I was a little bit of a nerd. I was a massive nerd. So I wasn't one of the cool kids stealing booze from my parents in high school. Harry can't tell you anything about that. But and that's why we're here today, and how he knows all of the winemakers in the Western Cape so well. But I think that I finished high school, and like any other kid at the age of 18, obviously has no idea of what you want to do for the rest of your life. The current, I think, curriculum at school doesn't really point you into any direction or asks any important questions. We're all sort of just clubbed into this net and then dragged along the ocean floor, And I wanted to take a gap year because that was the cool thing to do. And my parents said, absolutely not. You're going to go to university. So I said, cool. Well, I did all these scientific subjects. I'm going to enroll in a chemistry and polymer science. So, God, I think I was going to work at Plascon for a moment there, probably, or in pharmaceuticals or something else. I mean, yeah, since COVID, I do technically work in the drug trade, but yeah, it's been touch and go. All of these subconscious little, like, since you said lockdown, I mean, now it's now a mess.
Coming back to you.
Yeah, it's coming back to me very quickly how we first met. But yeah, I think I enrolled to do chemistry and polymer science. I didn't know or understand any of the subject descriptions that Stellenbosch was spitting at me. I went through that thick book of like all the things that you can do that didn't have any what you can be or what your life would look like. And I thought that I'd just enroll into this basic BSc and I'd get to know other people on campus and figure my life out from there. So epic plan, started doing chemistry and polymer sciences. One night at Bohemia, I was having little box wine mull pits at the stage, and they were always, you know, sometimes good, sometimes bad. You'd sometimes be able to have a couple, sometimes you'll have one, and that would be the end of the night. But I found out about this awesome course where you could drink wine during class time, and I just thought, epic, I'm going to have my gap year after all. So,
And still work for Gladstone.
of course. And, you know.
Fine.
So what started as I think a little bit of a credit-bearing social activity, or yeah, just I don't know, a deviation from my academic responsibilities, quickly consumed me, and I've been in love with the glorious liquid ever since. So I went to my first wine class, and I was like,
what
okay.
course was that? What was the course?
So BSc in viticulture and enology.
Where?
At Stellenbosch University. So about 2 doors down from the chemistry faculty. I still did all the same basic subjects, but my major was just, you know, in my mind, drinking wine, which is epic. And then running around the vineyards and, you know, playing outside. So, and then every Friday afternoon, we'd have 3 hours of wine tasting as a legitimate subject. And I thought, you know, pre-drinks awesome. So we very quickly went to our first class, and I remember, you know, and I joke about it now, but it's actually a serious fascination that I fell into and drowned in ever since. But we had Kathy Marston, who is a very well-known wine educator, as one of our very first lecturers, and she did this course on the world of wine. And I sat in that class, and I mean, I had all these drinks in front of me, which is what I thought about them at that moment. And as she was talking about, you know, just the history and the philosophy and the science and the terroir and the nature and the people and the sociology and everything that goes into each one of these glasses, and then from a moment of like tasting these wines and seeing them differently, I was just absolutely hooked. And I very quickly became absolutely just fantasized by this entire wine world and how complex it was and how it combined all of my favorite things in this glorious little liquid. And I think at that moment I just realized that a bottle of wine is a time capsule, and I realized that you know, it's, if you really pay attention, it's an art, absolutely. And it's, if you really pay attention, it can transport you back to that little spot, that little place, consumed with the people that grew the grapes, consumed by the environmental factors, I think, that govern the ripening of the grapes. And I think that I've realized that if I do my job well, that I get to somehow connect people to that place. And that's what happens when you make wine in an authentic, transparent way.
So Kathy, I mean, Kathy's, if you don't know Kathy Marston, she does the WSET wine courses. She's the master. She's really done well in terms of, it's an international course in terms of South Africa. I know about the education because I headed up the Cape Wine Academy for a while. And so we worked
another layer. Peeling this guy like a, I mean, I don't know, what is mini peels? Most
if you peel me, then you cry. I'm like an onion. So yeah, and so Kathy is remarkable, and she's doing her Master of Wines overseas. There's Joe. Hello, Joe.
Welcome, Joe.
How you? You can sit there, or you can sit there. You can go sit. Okay, so yeah, so Kathy's done a lot of good in educating people and making people come alive with wine.
Yeah, absolutely. She is 100% responsible for, I think, my journey. If you think about where I started, and I never turned around, so I immediately enrolled, and
But you did turn around, because my understanding is that you studied we studied oenology and viticulture.
Yeah.
So she's not just a winemaker, she's actually a viticulturist at Beau.
Yeah.
But then you pulled yourself into marketing.
Oh goodness, yeah, that was a wild U-turn. So I finished viticulture and oenology. Is this where I tell my story?
Yes.
Sorry, just
This is,
Harry's very stressed tonight, so I'm getting a
I
lot
can
of
tell you
like
my
energy
story,
from
but
this.
everyone's heard it.
So
That's interesting.
so yeah, I finished studying viticulture and oenology at Stellenbosch University, and I just felt that, you know, even though we learned all of the dynamics about how to make wine, we didn't really learn the dynamics about why we make wine, and also just in general how it fits into the greater social scene and how it becomes a viable business. So I mean, even though I could be super successful in a lab or in a cellar, I didn't really know anything about the business side of wine. So I wanted to iron that out. And after I was done at Stellenbosch University, I enrolled in a postgrad in business and marketing management at UCT.
An underachiever, basically.
Well, I mean, I dropped out very quickly, so don't.
You dropped out to do another course where you were cum laude?
Yes.
Right.
Oh
Okay,
my gosh, this guy.
I've learned.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I went to UCT and literally moved to Cape Town a month in. All my friends were doing harvests across the world. They were doing internships all over the place, and my fingers got super itchy. So I, at that point, emailed Beau Constantia. I looked at all the Constantia wine farms. I really had an affinity for Beau. I emailed their winemaker, Justin van Beek at the time, who's also the winemaker at Constantia Glen, and was providing a winemaking service for Beau at that particular moment in time. No, not Eagle's Nest. That was Stuart Witter. So he's now Takara, excellent winemaker as well as Justin. So yeah, I just sort of popped out and said, look, I am doing a marketing course at UCT. It is harvest soon. I would be really keen to get my hands dirty, sort of offering a little bit of free labor to come and run around the vineyards and work in the cellar. And he said, look, cool. I actually work for Constantia Glen. This is where we make the wine for Beau Constantia, but you can come and be an intern for the season. After a couple of late nights and me just falling back into the glorious liquid that is wine, I very quickly left my marketing studies and became an assistant winemaker there. So that's where I grew really close to the terroir and the steep mountainside that is Beau Constantia, doing that winemaking service for them. And then fast forward a couple of vintages around the world, in 2019, I took over as winemaker viticulturist there.
I don't know if everyone saw, I posted a link on Story Cellars for those who are on Story Cellars of when I went to go see Megan to learn about Beau Constantia for the Constantia story. She took me up in this John Deere, dear John, green little boom, boom. 4 minutes it takes to get up there, and a lot of talking. Jesus. Sand,
so passionate.
But if you look at that video, you can see the terrain there. It's like this.
It's cool. It's, you know, what's so cool about making wine against really steep slopes is that the steeper the slopes, the faster your terroir changes, right? With every 100 meters that you change in height above sea level, you drop a serious amount of temperature. Your soil profile obviously changes tremendously because erosion happens so much faster over steep slopes. So it's such a cool little pocket of land where so much is happening, and we're forced to work in all of these small little batches because the terrain is just so greatly different from this spot to the next, even though we only have 11.43 hectares under vineyard. So it's a really exciting little spot. Harry does not want the Padanon white. He wants more of the Padanon.
I don't want the Padanon white in the grade.
I got you.
Sorry, I've just been taught by Murray, actually. I didn't know this.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know this because you would have told this to me. But I kept on calling it Pastanon. And she goes, no, it's Padanon.
I taught you that.
And so did Murray. And Murray says to me, do you know why it's called Padanon? And I said, yeah, because I know French so well. It means pardon. And Murray tells me, no, it's the man without the name. I know the story behind that because I know of the farm manager who, maybe let's talk about him, or that story.
So
what's his name?
Umyapi Braun, say his name. So Umyapi is an absolute legend. So just to quickly take it back a couple of 100 years, Constantia is a really interesting space to make wine in because it's got such historical significance. It's the oldest wine growing region in the Southern Hemisphere. It dates all the way back to 1685. So the southern eastern slopes of the Constantia Berg that you would see if you sort of cruise back over Kaapseberg, you would see the original Constantia, which was called Constance, which is now made up of a bunch of different farms. But in those days, it was just one farm. It's now made up out of Groot Constantia, Klein Constantia, Buitenverwachting, and Constantia Eitzicht. Yeah, like Steenberg is a little bit later. But yeah, that whole mountainside sort of planted more to your white grape varieties, a little bit cooler on the ocean-facing side, southeast facing. The planting majority Sauvignon Blanc and the Cape Whites. That was the old original Constantia farm. The northeast facing side where you find ourselves, Constantia Glen and Eagle's Nest, and that little pocket where we actually make majority red wines, we're planted to 80% red. We're planted on sort of the little warmer slopes of the back of the Flackenberg. So northeast slopes are a lot warmer, we get a little bit more sunlight. Swells are warmer, so actually allow for us to ripen our red grapes before the winter hits. There are some years in our cool climate where our cab isn't perfectly right before winter pulls in. But
and then you just use Stellenbosch grapes.
Exactly. Joking.
No.
Never. He caught me. No. So all of the Beau Constantia wines are wines or grapes that we farm and then preserve into wine.
Your pardon socks.
I'm wearing the socks, yeah. So yeah.
Sorry.
It was a little master gives Darby some socks moments, but so Beau Constantia and the rest of those properties only came about after the really, really terrible year 2000 fires. So in the year 2000, all of the properties that existed in that space completely burned down. Beau Constantia originally was a goat farm. It's the only thing any sane man would grow against those slopes and have it be profitable. Just grow like the goats.
The goat seed.
Exactly, very biodynamic. So it used to be a really cool goat farm. In the year 2000, it burned down, and again, all of them, yeah. And it basically opened up the land for investment, and a couple of families bought the properties, and the De Preer family bought Beau Constantia as we know it today. Fast forward to 2002, we had some vineyards planted, but when they originally bought the property, no viticulturist really had the guts to put their name to these really steep slopes, because in South Africa it hasn't really been done before. It's super Mosel, and when Jaapie Braun came out of retirement, so he established Steenberg Vineyards, he was very involved with Klein Constantia as well, and he actually came out of retirement to establish the vineyards at Beau Constantia. I was lucky to have met Jaapie because I only started in 2015, finished studying in 2014, and that was also the year that Jaapie passed. So this
but
label...
he'd been in the Constantia as a farmer 40 years, over 40 years.
Yeah. And he was this hulk of a man, but this very quiet farmer that sort of just took solace behind his incredibly impressive beard before, all the landscaping and the rest of it started. And yeah, he's an incredible farmer that would sort of like say good morning at the cellar and give me 2 taps on the back, and I'd sort of take 3 steps forward just because, his hands were like this big. And incredible man. He farmed those vineyards practically by himself. And then he passed, and the owners.
So what's why is it called Paranorm? And why the beard?
It's called Paranorm because it's man without name, right? And it's important because it poses the question. We could have just said the Jaapie Braun, but it poses the question: why does it not have a name? And then it gives us the opportunity to tell the story behind his name. And because Jaapie just basically was so humble and just hid behind this massive, impressive beard of his, it became sort of synonymous to the brand, the Paranorm. And ironically, this wine was released during a time where the whole manscaping thing took off and hipsters started existing, and everyone sort of thought that the brand meant something completely different, but it really is all about Jaapie.
But so this is Megan's absolute love, or it's her absolute talking point, is as a wine industry, we're getting it all wrong. Basically, the majority of us getting it all wrong. Only a third of the wineries are profitable, and in terms of that, we've got, I know we had this chat on the way down. It was 4 minutes up to the top of our Constantia. It was like 20 minutes down, and she was telling me about millennials and Generation Z, and they make up the largest population, and we're not marketing to them. So if you look at Beau Constantia wines, most of the Constantia wines have an emboss, and we're not getting into that debate. All on the wine route, the Constantia wine route, they're all working together for a common brand, but they've got this individuality. You bring an individuality to Beau Constantia. So tell us about this.
Sure, loaded.
So loaded, yeah.
So
this is going out to everyone.
I mean, the recordings are even more.
Yeah, okay, so it's even more loaded. So I think just yeah, being a little bit younger, I grew up in a very different environment to a lot of the people that make up most of the South African wine industry. I think that the South African wine industry is an incredibly intimidating place with many gatekeepers that keep it from becoming, I think, the incredible melting pot that could, you know, represent the massive diversity that we have in our terroir. And yeah, our people. I think that, you know, Constantia, especially being so steeped in history and being dated all the way back to 1685, comes with a whole different set of social issues, you know, being the start of farming in the country and the rest of that as well. And I think that when I started at Beau Constantia, and I already felt that as a really young queer woman at that time, you know, I didn't really fit the mold, and I'm used to not really fitting the mold, but it was also important to me that, you know, I think the mold is, yeah, it's something that represents a dying market. So I think that, you know, considering that 2/3 of our population, 66% of our population are below the age of 35, that we have a real responsibility to changing the way in which we brand our wines as, you know, liquid luxury or outrageously opulent or all of these other keywords that we use to explain it. We as a South African wine industry, which we saw during lockdown and the blanket ban on alcohol, you know, we are such an important part of our country's economy and the amount of people that are employed by our industry. So more than 400,000 people are employed and supported by the South African wine industry.
Wine, hospitality, tourism?
That's just wine.
Just wine. And then after that, everyone who's in tourism, everyone who's in hospitality, the person who cleans the sheets in the hotels,
yeah, everyone
in lockdown,
the waiter, the cleaner, you know, there are a lot of people that are dependent on the wine industry. Poor Harry here, you know, trying to sell a story. So there are a lot of people. There are a lot of people involved in the wine industry.
I think stories cross the gap between the millennials and the old.
I think so, because I think, you know, storytelling is the only way in which we can really communicate properly, right?
What humans do.
Yeah, and I just felt that there was this massive gap where we have this responsibility to ensuring that the wine industry remains sustainable and profitable, yet we are selling wine to or marketing wine to a dying market. So starting at Beau, I really wanted to change the environment in which wine is consumed. I wanted to convince a younger generation to drink more wine. So we wanted to sort of tear off or tear apart all of these walls and gates to keep people away from wine and create a brand that is more accessible to many people. It's a developing story, as is our democracy, but that's sort of, I think, also where we've gone with the Paranorm range. You know, we've very much diversified our offering at Beau Constantia, where, you know, we have the 10-course degustations that you can do at Chef's Warehouse with the incredible Ivor Jones. We have the glass encased tasting room, where our Beau Constantia wines are really expensive because it's obviously not very profitable to farm against such steep slopes. But then, you know, like, what do we offer everyone else? It wasn't really accessible. So we've obviously
used those steep slopes to create the amphitheater.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. We now have the events, and we have a little food truck, and we have the slinging of bottles to a younger generation. And yeah, I think it's important to get the younger generation into drinking wine. And I think there's a lot that we can learn from the craft beer industry, like the guys across the road here at Aga.
I just remembered something. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No.
I was at Chef's Warehouse having a dinner with my wife. It was our anniversary or something. and I saw a
Or
guy.
something. She's going to watch this.
I saw, she's on there, Trace is on there. And
Go.
I saw a guy, they were all sitting there, they were sitting there under the umbrellas, and I saw a guy sling a bottle. Is that what he's supposed to do?
Yes, he was hopefully one of the waiters. You know, that's how we get into the kids in the crowd. We just fling
No,
them
it was
like
empty.
that. No, absolutely.
And he was smoking.
Terry, what are you doing to me right now?
And I think you threw it into your Pinot Noir.
No, we planted some Pinot Noir. So that's the other thing, like, you know, there's this whole thing about red oceans where we're all fighting for this in the same, like, troubled waters where there's very little food and you have all of these sharks trying to fight each other for their next meal. And then you have these incredible blue oceans in the marketplace where, you know, there's no competition, the water is clear and not bloody whatsoever, and you create a new route for yourself. So in going for a younger, I think, demographic or a younger generation in terms of what we try and show at Beau Constantia, which is also why we don't use the original Constantia bottle molds. I think that we've entered that blue ocean. We're not pissing off our neighbors by stealing their clientele, and you know, we're getting a lot of I think the younger UCT students and the rest of the very vibrant Cape Town to come and visit us at the farm for more than just wine. You know, I think if we look at the younger markets, we are these socially aware, eco-conscious, digital natives, and you know, it's important that we start building wine brands in a way where that can be appreciated. So I think first and foremost, we need to get younger people to actually drink wine. A very small part of our population currently drink wine.
I did the maths on this. Can I tell you the maths?
Yeah.
So I did a paper in 2015.
This is where the finance comes out.
No, but this is how it works. So if you look, and you can look at the stats now, and it's not going to be that much different. If you look at the alcohol drinking population in South Africa, about 65% drink beer. I've got to check my maths. 60% drink beer, because that's a small round. 15% drink spirits, and 15% drink wine. But now this is the clincher.
Wine drinkers.
Yeah. Within the 15% that drink wine, and in 2015 when I did this, you had premium, super premium wine, and standard wine. And the super premium wine was regarded as wine back then as wine that was over 35 Rand a bottle.
Wow.
This is super premium, and only 15% of the wine drinkers were in the super premium category. So 15 times 50. That means that between 2.5% and 3% of the alcohol drinking population in South Africa drink wine over 35 Rand a bottle.
It's because it's exclusive to the point of excluding, and that's the problem that we have, you know.
It hasn't changed.
So it hasn't changed, but I think it is changing, and yeah, we're really excited about that.
No, I think there's a lot happening for the change. My part of the change is to try use stories to try and get wine out there. But there is change, and you can see it now in the ownership of land. You can see that now in the brands and stuff. The question I wanted to ask you, because you're speaking about Uomyapi and Padanom, and I got a real sense when I was developing the story for Constantia about the camaraderie between the winemakers and the farm managers and everyone that is there.
Oh, absolutely. I think, you know,
if you're in a pickle.
Yeah, goodness, the amount of wine I think that I drop off with Etienne, the farm and vineyard manager at Constantia Glen, to use as implements or vice versa. You know, I think we are very different to maybe other regions out there. I know that some regions have super tall walls between properties and people. We're so far away from the rest of the wine world. You know, Constantia only makes up 0.4% of the country's viticultural landscape. So we're
430 hectares out of 90,000.
Exactly. So we're so small. We're so small, and because we're so far out, it means that we sort of have to club together. And also, what's funny is that we have this really historic region, but the winemakers are actually all quite young and forward-thinking and well-traveled. So, you know, there's a lot that we can learn from each other, and I think collaboration is what has essentially helped Constantia as such a small player to take up a bigger part of the marketplace, because alone with 11 hectares out of the 430 that is Constantia, we don't have much of a voice. But as a collective, you know, entirety of Constantia, we have a little bit more say. And I think that is what we've been trying to achieve as a Constantia wine route, which is.
But I'm chomping at the bit now, because if anyone sitting listening to us, even the aliens, everyone, listen, what's it? It's 4 0.4% of the
0.4%.
0.4% of the production of wine is in Constantia, but everyone knows Constantia wine, which means that
That's because we're in North Carry.
no, it's because I've been punting Constantia for the last
That's
6
true.
months.
That's really true.
No, but everyone knows Constantia to the extent that Constantia was as a ward or as a district, whatever, was they changed the district to Cape Town. So everywhere in Durbanville, Cape Point, Hart Bay, and Constantia can on their bottles put Cape Town. Now for an international market, Cape Town is a good thing because everyone knows Cape Town maybe better than the other regions.
Nobody knows
90%, but
yeah.
I don't know where the arguments are, but 90% of the people that are sitting in Constantia are saying wine of origin Constantia.
Yes, because I think that, and this is nothing bad against the guys out in Durbanville. Like, I mean, I have good friends making wine out there, but I do think that, you know, the whole point of making wine and having regionality is that we have collective terroir and a collective sort of, you know, batch of secrets that we lock into our bottles. So I think it dilutes your terroir.
Is yours adding acid?
I don't have any acid. We're called climatary. Keep up. So I think it dilutes your terroir if you join forces with other regions, especially that are so different from yours. Like, we could not be more different from the Durbanville region if you think about our terroir, or Elam, or, you know, it's the point of wine is to try and focus, you know, onto the environmental forces and the factors in the soils that give rise to certain qualities in the wine that someone can taste and point back to that particular place in that particular year, you know. And I think that if we are all going to club into Cape Town as a Western Cape wine growing region because of marketing benefits, and for sure the guys that are into the bulk business go for Cape Town, sell it out wherever in the world people understand Cape Town. But for us in Constantia, we were trying to forge a real story about what it is that we do here and how that translates into what you're tasting, connecting person and place. It's a dilutionary effect of everything that we've tried to do. So
there is the Sauvignon Blanc. So the Constantia wine route has created the Sauvignon Blanc route. And I'm not trying to compete with the other Sauvignon Blanc regions like Durbanville.
Are you working for Durbanville as well, Harry?
I am. And I must just note that I don't think they're putting Cape Town on their bottles either.
Yeah.
No, but the point is that the Sauvignon Blanc route in Constantia allows you to go to the wine farms on the route and taste a vertical of the Sauvignon Blanc. And I've tasted Sauvignon Blancs from every single producer on the wine route, except for Eagle's Nest, because they've only just started launching.
Yeah.
That is 10 years old Sauvignon Blanc, and I promise you it is as fresh as a daisy.
Well, Sauvignon Blanc is obviously one of the noble grape varieties, so it's one of the oldest grape varieties to ever exist. And like, you think about your Bordeaux whites and you know, people that have had wine culture over the decades and how that's been indoctrinated down the generations. Sauvignon Blanc is a variety that ages incredibly well. It is made to age. You know, it's when you taste Sauvignon Blanc off the shelf, and guys are already fighting to get their 2023 out. God, like, we're not even flowering yet. But you know, I think when you pick up a Sauvignon Blanc from the shelf and you had to pick up a Cabernet Franc from the same year, you'd understand why Sauvignon Blanc should age. So for me, 2017s are drinking really beautifully right now. Sauvignon Blanc has such brilliant acidity and such great structure that it's really something that's made to age. And I think what we're trying to show in Constantia, with our soils being over 200 million years old, makes us look like teenagers in terms of our regionality's age.
Like little embryos.
Yeah, tiny. Like so much opportunity. I would do it all very different. But yeah, so I think that, you know, Sauvignon Blanc is so misunderstood. Remember that when we were making wine back in the day and we went out of our post-apartheid sanctions, it was the first time where wine was unregulated. It wasn't controlled by the Quavifier, and everyone ran to the international market with whatever they could sell. And at that point, cheap Chenin, and also the earliest Sauvignon Blanc that you can possibly release. I mean, we still have a cup that gets awarded to the winemaker that releases the first Sauvignon Blanc of the vintage in South Africa. And it's so sad because we force things to be ready for bottle so much sooner than they should go into bottle. And I think that Sauvignon Blanc has a little bit of an identity crisis in South Africa, because we just lace it with all of these commercial yeasts and focus groups that give us something that is exactly like every single other grape. And there's so much more to explore. Styles, you know, and that's it. So that we have all these style-driven yeasts, and it's a style that we try and force. But I genuinely think that as a country, we have such opportunity to create incredible Sauvignon Blanc if we just take the foot off the pedal and we pay attention to what it really wants to do, you know. So that's what we've been doing in Constantia. I think our Sauvignon Blancs age incredibly well.
I think that's a common thread across. But I don't see anyone in Constantia going, oh, let's add Vin 7.
No, so that's the thing, you know. I think all
Vin
of our
7's a yeast.
It's a very, very potent yeast. And there's Vin 13, and there's Alchemy 2, which is like a combination of Vin 7 and Vin 13. You know.
Sorry, I'm joking, but by definition, there should also be a Vin 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12.
That's what they use for Shannon, Harry.
No, but I don't know, but I'm just using the numbers.
Yeah, no.
So
it's
I want to
interesting.
learn. We're going to get into some of the wines. I know a lot of you bought the mixed case. Thank you so much. Yes, the deal that you got on that.
Thank you guys so much. Yeah.
The deal that you got on that box is actually exquisite. But we've also got some other wines. So we want to go through the ranges. But before that, there's 3 things I want to know. And it's in terms of, because I've got this now pretext of Constantia. And I think you said there's no other region in South Africa where the winemakers sort of collaborate. But I think it's going to be hard to find any wine region in the world where the winemakers get together on a Friday and drink beer
and brandy and coke
and all that stuff.
If you ever need something to do on a Friday,
just to let loose, but also to discuss what they're doing in the vineyards. And I don't think there's any region in the world where the farm managers do the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think more importantly, I don't think there's anywhere, not even in continent. No, I don't think there's anywhere where the winemakers and the farm managers and everyone get together and they have an opscorp with Brandevan and Potjie, and they talk about what's happening in their vineyards.
Potjie Champions
the second point,
2022.
Really? What did you use? Chicken curry?
No, I can't tell you.
No. Can I tell you, I've been to 2 Potjie competitions here with Frank. And I went and I tried to get some information out of him. I said, Frank, you're the judge. Tell me what I must do. And we know each other. So be truthful. He says, Harry, I can't. I'm the judge. I can't tell you. But don't use chicken. There's no fat in chicken. And don't use a curry because everyone does it.
So we did a Moroccan lamb tagine, and we didn't have the tagine because it was a Potjie. So we did a lot of cheap meat because we're a lot of youngsters. And and then we put one little lamb shank right in the middle to create the tunnel of the tagine, and then we just layered it with potato to create the pot, and it was absolutely
so it was
ridiculous.
Like a shepherd's pie.
Basically, and then we mixed it all up and served it to the judges with a lot of fancy stuff.
Our first year's name was You Brisket because we used brisket, and our second one was Chuck Norris because we used Chuck. But the point is that the last 2 years, the Potjie that has won here, the Potjie that has won here, the Potjie that's won here, last year, because it beats everything else. It does. Well, it didn't this year, but last year the chicken curry won, and this year chicken curry won. And I went to Frank, and he came up to me and said, "You needed to add more salt."
Can I tell you the most ridiculous thing? I know you're also friends with this crazy man. I love him so much, Roger Burton from.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so
we made a Cabernet.
You know how he keeps pouring his glass around the room. I would also love some wine. That would be really great.
Can we grab some wine?
Yeah.
No, we know people.
So Roger.
I heard some Sicily was floating around.
Yeah, can we open some Sicily, please?
Thank you. So Roger Burton is, I was going to say possibly, but definitely my favorite winemaker.
He makes Constantia Royal.
Yeah. In the Valley, he's an incredible dude. So he not only makes Constantia Royal, he also makes some of the Tierhoek wines. And he's been all over, and he just has the most incredible wealth of knowledge, not only about wine, but life, you know. He will sometimes bring me a book to a meeting or just share some philosophies, and it's always a great time. But Roger, the Dodger, as we sometimes refer to him, when he just sneaks out at the end of a tasting somewhere and we lose track of him. He made a,
He's been on
I'm
here,
not
eh?
kidding, really, I didn't even watch his, but he made a lasagna poiki. I shit you not, he did that full on, made a lasagna in a poiki. And if that does not tell you
Was it
how
nice?
able a winemaker
No.
is, I don't know what
Was it nice?
It was fantastic. We all gave him a lot of trouble, but it was absolutely
I'll tell you
brilliant.
about Roger, because we've actually, I made a wine
Yeah,
with Wayne.
no
Wayne
way.
doesn't know much, and Roger, and the six of us. It's a cab.
It's
We've got 1 ton of cab from Franschhoek. We've made it here in Noordhoek, and
Amazing.
because it's a cab, we've called it
Oh, here we go.
split the fare. Split the fare because it's a cab.
fair. Yeah,
And if it's cut, then we cross out the L and we call it split the fare. So it doesn't matter. But so the second thing I wanted to say, the second thing I want to say, so you guys get together often
Yeah.
and you discuss things and you know each other, and it is a remarkable thing to see.
Well, we need each other, right?
You need each other.
Like, and I think that's
But
that's it.
but this leads me onto the six segues. This is the word I've learned. Segues into this next thing
You
about
have used that word tonight before.
the
haven't you?
length of service, of the people in Constantia. So we just spoke about
Yeah.
Yapi of 40 years. But if you look at Buller, he's 22, 23 years. Brad Payton, he's 20 years. You, who've just started, is now at least 7 years.
Shit, am I that old?
Matt Day is the third winemaker at Constantia. He's been there for 13, 15
he's
years.
another really good bloke.
And we
Justin's been there since 2008.
Justin's
so,
been there from Constantia in 2008.
Yeah.
Best winemaker
Thank
of the
you
year
so
last
much.
year, by the
Yeah,
way.
Diners Pub.
And that talks about that north-facing terroir for the reds that you can get there. But that's just the winemakers. If you look at the farm managers,
Oh.
what about Baton Verwachten? The guys have been around. And so what these guys have done, and the girls,
Thanks, Sarah.
in fact, I think Constantia has got the highest percentage of women winemakers, but
Yes, and we
people,
just got another one. Georgina Wilkinson just joined the Valley,
Hello,
winemaker
Georgina. How
at
are you?
Constantia Glen. Very, very excited. So it's now myself. It
35%.
was lonely for a moment. 35% because we only have like 3 farms, Harry. But it's myself. It's Alinda, who's an absolute firehouse. I mean,
Timber.
do you know? So Alinda as well as Georgina, which is really, really cool. And Karen gets so excited. So she's saying we can finally do Women's Day events because we have more than one female winemaker. It's embarrassing when one rocks up, you know. But Alinda also, I mean, I was so excited when she joined the Valley. So when I was at Stellenbosch
She doesn't mince her
University,
words, Alderman.
hey,
Nor do you.
yeah, it's a chick thing, Harry. So Linda was working at JC LaRue when I was in university, and that was one of my very first jobs that I ever had in my entire life as a first-year student. I was pouring people JC LaRue in a tasting room, and I just remember studying winemaking every now and then, seeing the cellar master sort of cruise past the tasting room, being like, "Oh, that's a Linda Besson," you know. And then, long story short, she joined the Valley, I think now 2 years ago.
No, more longer.
3.
JD, we're in Warwick was sold because JD moved to Warwick.
But Jade, there was no one.
She moved
There was no one when JD left.
4 years ago. 4 years.
Yeah, shit. It's
I'm
been a
sure
lot.
it's 2 years of COVID. Eh?
Yeah, true. That just steals time. But when Alinda joined the Valley, I just thought,
When
this is absolutely wild. I can't believe that I get to sit at the same table.
when I interviewed all the winemakers, all the property owners, everyone, and I was more petrified of Linda than anyone else because she walks in, yalla.
No, for sure. And she gets to demand that respect because, you know what, it's people go off, you know, what it's like being a female winemaker in a patriarchal industry, and you're like, oh, yeah, it's tough, whatever. But at the same time, you know, I have it really easy compared to women like Alinda that were out there and in the forefront of the entire journey that really had to pave the way. I mean, it's because of women like Alinda and Kathy Marshall and the rest of them that I get to sort of slide in and do what I'm doing today. But no, just an absolutely epic addition to the Constantia winery.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about some of the wines.
There we
So
go.
I think what we need to, if there's a bottle opener, we can open some reds because I've been drinking white now. My tongue is getting a little looser.
I know, I'm feeling more confident as well.
Did you hear about the stationery shop that moved?
Oh my God, what?
No longer a station.
Oh!
This is what happens. I have one glass of wine.
And they get worse, trust me, that's like the one.
Okay, so I want to talk about we've spoken about pardon. So let's get into the serious wines, because the wines here are serious and they're really good. We can open some here. The guys who ordered the case, you've got the Aiden. So let's start with the Aiden.
Yeah.
We've got a Luca and we've got a Cecilia. No, can we start with a Cecilia here? We can get from Cecily, sorry.
So we sold out of our current vintage, which is why I'm really excited to have this tonight. I haven't had it in at least like 8 days.
Can I please also have
But,
some?
For special.
Okay, listen, I just must remember we've got an online audience here. So if we can just pour some Aiden, you guys will have Aiden, it's the red one, but we don't need to be drinking it. Let's just talk about the story of what does Aiden mean?
Well, I think, you know, to like explain to you where Aiden fits into the story, Beau Constantia was bought by the Duprier family, so Cecily and Pierre Duprier, as an incredible space to raise their children, you know, and Cecily and Pierre are the two white wines. Pierre is a little bit of an allocation wine. It's made of Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon that we farm right at the top of Flackenberg. It sells out in like 3 weeks in a year. We make a very little bit of it. That's why it's not here tonight. Cecily, Pierre's wife, and I should actually say Cecily's husband. Cecily is a straight Viognier from Constantia. I was absolutely terrified coming to Constantia and making Cecily because, you know, Viognier has such a bad rep in South Africa. It's been planted in all these warm regions where you basically pull up at the bar and you say fill up unleaded and you get this really waxy, oily, like migraine in a glass.
Low acid, high
Yeah,
alcohol.
high alcohol, a lot of punchy, bitter phenols. And I traveled to the Condrieu in the year 2018, and I realized the Condrieu, where the Viognier comes from in the Rhone region, is actually super cold. I mean, I froze. And I realized that Viognier is supposed to be in cool climate countries, so you have a little bit more of a picking window. We get to pick in small batches.
Get some acid up there.
Exactly, preserve that acidity, nice little pHs. So it's a little bit more floral, and then obviously we don't just punch it out of stainless steel. We press, settle, do natural ferment in old oak and concrete, and then leave it on the gross lees to sort of chill out and get that little bit of extra structure and salinity over 8 months before bottling. So Cecily is currently sold out. I'm very happy to have her in my glass tonight. I've missed her. But we are
I'm not
releasing
happy
it again
because
at
no
the end
one's
of
giving me
November.
any.
So that's a Cecily. And then very well named, actually. They're awesome, like 2 kids. I can't believe how old Luca and Aiden are right now. Luca,
The 2 wines.
Luca and Aiden. So the 2 reds. Luca and Aiden are actually so perfectly. Cheers. They're so perfectly personified. So Luca, their older daughter, and then Aiden, their youngest son. So Luca, I believe, is elegant as she is fierce. I mean, this wine really makes itself. And when I say it makes itself, we don't interfere much in our winemaking philosophy in any way. We just preserve as well as we can in the cellar. There's no point in making wine from bad grapes, so we farm our fingers to the bone in the vineyards. You know, the Cab Franc and the Merlot vines are actually vineyards that don't need a lot of meticulous attention in terms of topping and trimming and removing side shoots. They're just so happy and in balance between vegetative and reproductive growth, between above and below ground growth. And I always explain, my partner's just like left the room, but thank you, I'm busy doing this. But, you know, when I grab not sold out. Oh, damn.
In the UK,
jealous. In the UK. Rack is our supplier in the UK. Yeah, so Luca, if I wanted to grab a bottle of Luca to go to a dinner party, my partner would just grab it out of my hand because I become completely introverted if I have a glass of Luca. You know, it is this wine that just unwinds and unwinds and unwinds. Yeah, so it's 53% in this vintage Merlot. 37% Cabernet Franc, and for the first time ever, Cab Sauv, because
So
in
it's a
20.
it's a very right thing.
So usually just a Merlot and Cab Franc, but in 2018 we had the serious Cape drought, and for the first time ever we got our Cab Sauv off before the winter set in, and it just gives this nice little skeleton almost for the Cab Franc flora to dangle from. I'm a big fan of Luca, but it makes me completely antisocial, so I'm not going to have some this evening. And then
It's hard to
Aiden,
believe that you.
yeah, it's no, I do. When I start,
Can you be
learning out,
antisocial and talk still?
Absolutely.
No, yeah, I'm antisocial. I don't want to talk to you. But did you know?
It's about how much effort you put into your conversation.
I regard Megan, and I wrote this in the write-up about this event tonight, as a life force, because the energy, the exuberance, the passion. I mean, you guys have seen this now. That's what.
I just
wrong?
turned 30,
You're
so
not
it's downhill from here. I mean,
It
you
is.
met me at my peak.
You're going to be you're going to be a lot quieter in 2 years' time. That's it. Megan's going to be like this. Can you still look the
The
floral
roses.
notes? This is so perfect for my grandfather.
Yeah.
No, but okay. So
Oh, Aiden.
the Aiden. So we've spoken. Yeah. So just let me understand. Aiden and Luca are the kids.
Yeah.
The Cecily is
Mum.
mom. We don't have
Pierre's
any.
dad.
Pierre is dad. We don't have any Pierre here.
Yeah.
And onomatopoeia we don't have, but the last, what was that last wine that we talked about?
Stella, Creative Batch.
Oh, no, she hasn't mentioned. Now there's a wine.
We haven't even spoken about Aiden.
Speak about Aiden, I'll get excited.
We have people drinking Aiden live right now.
Okay,
So
yes.
live right now.
Talk about Aiden.
So, and then Aiden is Luca's younger brother, other than the two, the two boys. So we have Beau and Zook, so our four-legged friends that are very much part of the family as well. Aiden is very much the boisterous younger brother with the broad shoulders. If I had to explain Luca and Aiden as wines,
Lushan and Musa.
well, yeah, exactly. So when I say like Luca is elegant as she is fierce, you force your nose to the glass and you can't stop swirling it, and you're sitting in the corner of the room chatting to that introverted person. Aiden is sort of, that guy that everybody loves, but he's like the life of the party, and he like walks into the room with his broad shoulders. You know exactly what you're going to get meeting this guy, and that's the beautiful thing about the Aiden. So Aiden is made of our louder grape varieties. So it's made of a little bit of Syrah, some Cab Sauv, Petit Verdot, and Malbec. So these are obviously all your like thicker skinned, dark fruited varieties.
It's a blend of Northern Rhone
and
Bordeaux.
But also it's Constantia.
Yeah, we're not talking about that. Have you seen the trouble that Europe's in at the moment?
Yeah, good for them. Like we've been figuring our shit out since 1994. They need a.
No,
they need a
1685.
pickup. Yeah, it's questionable. So for me, like I think that, and I think this is actually a big problem with South Africa, is that we have a massive identity crisis when it comes to the wines we make, and because we are so unsure of who we are, we've looked at our external resources for us to find our identity. So we go, oh, we grow Bordeaux grape varieties. We couldn't be more different to Bordeaux. Bordeaux literally was a swamp until the Dutch dumped a shit ton of sand there and started growing vineyards. It was man-made terroir. Have you seen these mountains?
100%.
How did you get here? Oh, you live in Noordhoek. You don't often traverse the hills.
Well, I didn't know that they dumped it. I didn't know they dumped a shit there, but did you say shit or shit?
It's up to you.
No, but
it's
the thing is,
we
no,
couldn't be further apart from
no,
Bordeaux.
but this is the most important
why are we
thing.
using that regional name for something that is absolutely
It's
unlike?
100% right. What you're saying is 100% right. What you do though is you need to say to people, you come from Bordeaux, that's what you make, this is what we make, using the same stuff.
Dude, the grape varieties here produce something completely different, and then it kills me when we go, okay, cool, let's do Bordeaux blind tastings where we measure ourselves against the great Bordeaux.
Yeah.
Why are we asking a goldfish to climb a tree? It's like that kind of thing. It's like it's good at different things.
Because that's evolution.
And it's not, Harry.
It is. It wasn't a goldfish. It was an. Anyway.
So no, but that's what I'm trying to say. You know, I think that it's important that
No,
we
but I
start
completely with you.
branding our regions as our very own regions, that we start owning the things that we do out here and start competing against ourselves, and we somehow start creating a brand South Africa and some sort of like lineage of this is Stellenbosch and this is Constantia. So we get to call our own roan and our own.
No, but we are getting there because so I'm lucky enough to bring over tourists from America, from
Absolutely,
UK,
yeah.
and no, not from Joburg, not from Joburg.
That guy needs a glass of wine.
I'll still spend more time in Joburg. I've lived more time in Joburg than anywhere. But the point is that that's exactly right. And when I'm talking about regions, you know, for instance, in Franschhoek, I did not know when people say, what does Franschhoek stand for? I said, it's Epicurean. There's so much going on with Franschhoek. But I've realized it's aged semillon.
Oh, absolutely. They have some of the
1905
most incredible semillon vineyards in the world.
We're off the track a bit. We're going through your wines. And
yes,
I remember, okay,
we're back.
I need to remember we've got people over here. So
How's it, everyone?
we're sitting at 8:05. We're looking good. But
I'm looking good.
you are looking good, Wayne.
Better than
But the
two
thing
glasses ago.
that astounded me, because I'm supposed to know everything about wine, and I'm supposed to be able to taste it and recognize it.
We will never know everything about wine. Harry.
No, I'm supposed to smell this and say, oh, that's a Viognier from Constantia. But when I went there for the first, when we were doing an artisan shoot and we arrived there, you gave me a wine. And if you looked at that video that I posted a link on the right there, they were like sticks sticking out of the ground. And this is the Sauvignon Blanc. So earlier, before you drive up there, there's no wind jacket. You drive up there and you look at these vines on the right, they're Sauvignon Blanc vines, and they are struggling, they're suckling, they are fighting to stay alive. And she gave me this wine, which was, I think it's an orange wine, that you skin contact Sauvignon Blanc with maybe 4 grapes, because there's no grapes there. Tell us about that.
So that's the pier. And I always joke saying that, you know, it's the most difficult and most rewarding wine to make on the property, and that's why it's named after the owner. But it's really
difficult.
no, he's the best. I absolutely love him. I just give him shit. I give him a lot of nonsense. But
Yeah,
you know,
he's
like
cool.
I think if you think about really like where I come from, people give me too much credit in saying that I started out of this position at 26. That wasn't me, you know, that was established person in the wine industry looking at a 26-year-old girl and giving her a shot, and that was Pierre. And we need more people like him, because none of us are out here owning land.
And he's
growing
giving you
vineyards.
full reign. He's saying,
well, that was it, you know, and I think that it took
that's why
an
you've got
incredible
this
amount of
young,
guts for him
brand.
to do that kind of thing, and I think that we need more people to take that leap of faith and to invest in younger people, and that's Pierre. You know, he's in Veg Capital, and he's always seen the world that, like, you know, 10 years before it happens, and he's incredible in that way. So no, I love Pierre, and that's why I get to give him
wine. It's not an orange wine. You know, I don't know if you guys know what an orange wine is.
Yeah.
Orange wine is when you make a white wine and you keep it on the skins like you're making a red wine.
Like a red wine. Doesn't have to be oxidized, and that's the problem. A lot of people think that orange wines or that white wines fermented on the skins have to be orange, and that they have to basically by neglect and not intention. You know, like exactly.
Everyone thinks truffle
that lasagna bowl of a face, that guy. So basically, what happens is, you know, we had these incredible Sauvignon Blanc, and this is why I fell in love with Beau Constantia. We had these Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon vineyards that grow right at the top of the property, 5 blocks, 1 Semillon, 4 Sauvignon Blanc, that grow up to, you know, 362 meters above sea level. That is serious altitude. And then they grow on a northeast facing slope. So they get whipped by the northwest wind coming from Hart Bay. They get whipped by the southeast coming off False Bay. And the wind just tunnels through the vineyard. So when the wind blows at more than 5 meters per second in velocity, the stomata of the
On a
plant.
calm day.
Yeah, the stomata close, and the plant no longer it protects itself from losing or evapotranspirating more liquid or more water from its leaves. So it closes its pores and it protects itself, and then it stops metabolizing acids. So I end up getting really like high alcohol, high sugar grapes with insane acidity that it was completely unbalanced. And what we're trying to do is trying to remain transparent and close to the soil, but also to obviously try and produce wine that is balanced, right? And that is where we do our work, in the vineyard and in the cellar.
That's a superb one.
And what happened was, we had this acidity of like 12 grams per liter with fruit that I would have to pick at like 15% alcohol, which is not doable. The most natural way in my mind to curb that massive acidity and to find balance was to ferment Sauvignon Blanc on the skins. And got into a little bit of trouble in my first year.
What does it do? Does it create body?
So what happens when you ferment grapes?
Acid?
It does. So when you ferment grapes on the skins, the potassium in the skins get leached out into the juice. Potassium binds to your acidity ions. Yeah. And you end up lowering your acidity without pushing your pH up too much, right? So you get it to do it naturally. That's what we do with red grapes. And remember, inside the grape variety, you have sugar, acid, and water. All of your terroir, all of your phenols, all of your flavors are locked in the skin. And then we put our white grapes into a press, we squeeze the juice out, we throw our fucking skins away.
No, but that can be astringent. You don't want astringent.
No, but dude, like, why do we ferment red wines in the skins? Because they are what our terroir has sold.
But we don't have those flavors in white skins.
Of course we do.
We have astringent.
No.
I'm not talking about your wine or all the other orange wines. I'm talking about the people that don't do it.
No, but those are oxidized. You can make oxidized red wines fermented on the skins, and you can make oxidized white wines fermented on the skins that go orange. That creative batch is fermented on the skin, and it's white because I didn't oxidize it. I respectfully fermented it on the skins like we do with our red wines, which is where you get spice, you get a little bit of tannin acid synergy, you get a little bit of structure, you get a little bit of salinity, you get the phenols that give you the health benefits of your red wines, and it tells the story of what happened in that vineyard. So the Pierre, for instance, is so saline as a wine, and what's better than salt and acid and balance together, right? Because
pork chops.
Absolutely, which I love having with my Pierre. It's a great pairing for my wine. And I think it's incredible. Also, it's
I told you I'm not going to be so nervous.
No, you are doing so much better. I'm so proud of you. You're a little bit more red, but you're doing fine.
No, that's because I was surfing.
It's the light.
Yeah, it's just the light, this red light. But you guys can't see it, but there's a red light shining just on Harry. And what happens? Yeah. Don't make me spin now, Harry. I'm focusing. So what happens with in this vineyard, for instance, is that like when you work in the vineyard, you literally get salt laden on your lips, and you become so salty. It feels like you've been in the Cape Wind on the beach all day long in the face of the southeast. You get dehydrated, and obviously that salt also sticks to the particular layer of the grape skin, which ends up translating into the wine, which you would have lost if you just pressed the skins away. So that is essentially the story of how Pierre and Cecily maybe thought that I was being too avant-garde, and then gave me the creative batch as a space to release my creative energy. But the Pierre we've been fermenting on the skins and found epic balance, and for the first time ever are, like getting awards for it and having a wine being recognized. And it's a skin fermented Sauvignon Blanc, which doesn't happen often. Absolutely, but it's just a really cool little story of what you need to do when you farm in such steep slopes.
The day I came to taste that wine, and I was like, it was pouring with rain, and we ended up in the wine tasting room. Do you remember? And there were these beautiful protea flowers sitting in the vase. And you gave me this wine and said, taste that. She's going to ask me what it is. I don't know what I'm doing. It's the worst day of my life. And I tasted it, and I was like, shit, this is nice. This is nice.
You were like, this is not from Constantia. And I was like, why? What are you saying about Constantia, Harry? But he did dig it. And I think that, there's a lot that we can do to find balance in many different ways.
Is that a metaphor for everything?
Yes.
It is.
Absolutely.
And I think it's right, but I think that's right. So I've met Megan 5 times, 10 times. We come across as if we know each other very well. We've done quite a lot together.
It's been easy.
It's been easy.
And I gained a lot of respect for you that night. That's Constantia Wine Route got Harry, as the storyteller that he is, to come and tell the story about Constantia. And everyone obviously thought that he was going to talk about
Katerina Russ
and Napoleon Bonaparte and Jan van Riebeeck.
I talked about the lady.
And he spoke about the fact that Constantia actually finds its origin in this matriarch that nobody knew about. And he really brought a whole new vision to Constantia in talking about, Johannes van Kleen and all of the people of color that have basically been washed out of history or whitewashed out of history. And it was, my eyes just completely opened to where I actually come from in terms of regionality.
It's an amazing thing. Constantia Wine Route is an amazing thing.
Yeah. And we're just starting to explore it, really.
And as you go up the wine route, you end up at Beau, Constantia, and that's an amazing thing. But Megan is a life force. I mean, you just heard the passion that she speaks about. You can say, tell us about this, and she'll speak with passion for 20 minutes without stopping.
Sorry.
No, it's I
felt that without stopping. That was a little.
I'm saying that there's so much knowledge, there's so much stuff, there's so much goodness, and you're living. I believe you're living your dream, and I believe that you're living your dream in the context of the Constantia dream, and I believe that Constantia's living the Constantia dream in the context of the South African dream.
Yeah. And
we're talking about wine. And I think that we are going places. I think as South Africa, we're going places. I think that, I spoke to Buller. Buller's been on here, and he said the one thing, but he said the one thing about the Swartland revolution was that everyone thinks it's about the Swartland.
No, it's not.
But those guys broke a mold.
Well, that's it, right?
And that allowed you to do what you're doing here. Yeah. It allowed Buller to do what he was doing. It allowed people everywhere. It broke the mold.
Well, it allowed for some creative energy, right? And I think the Swartland was most owned by this co-op mold. And when you had some young guns there shooting away at production volume focus, all of a sudden guys everywhere went, shit, my career could be more than just this, right? You don't have to feel that you're working in a factory as an artist, so that's been really great. I think the South African industry is on fire. I think in general South Africa is on fire. I think we're learning, we're unlearning, we're debating and figuring our things out, and I think we're all becoming the better for it, from an industry point of view, from a personal point of view. I think it's just all about essentially telling stories and learning how to communicate effectively across borders.
So we're sitting at 8:15. This is the time, usually maybe even a bit earlier, where we're going to ask Megan questions. I'm going to open it up to these guys first.
Let's go.
Because you guys, you're the worst. So I'm going to, if anyone online wants to ask a question, please just unmute yourself. Ask the question, Megan can respond, and then we unmute yourself again. Anyone? No? Please.
3-second rule, guys.
Or you can type in the thing and I'll answer it. Anyone here got questions for Megan? Why did she get so crazy to make wine?
How long is your swim contract for your guys? How long do you keep them?
So which one, the peer or the creative batch?
Creative batch.
So the creative batch does a full skin ferment, and then we wait for the berries to settle to the bottom of the tank, so no more carbon dioxide action until we. So we.
Is that a co-ferment? Sorry.
It is. So the creative batch was essentially born. I don't know if we even have time for the story. Sure.
There's a COVID story.
Yeah. So.
Give us 5 minutes.
Cool. So the creative batch was one that made me. I had all these creative ideas, and Pierre Cecily said, "Cool, let's give you a bottle, let's give you a label, and whether it's a Pinot and tin this year or a Cape White blend next year, like this is where you get to just experiment and run wild, and that's cool." And I thought that was awesome. And then I started in 2019, so I had all of these grape varieties lined up. I was going to make the most incredible Cape White blend. And by 16 March, I had all of my grape varieties sorted. I was going to pick them all the next week, bring them in, do them in different batches. And then, we'll never forget, the 23rd of March, we had our first family meeting. And we all sat down and we were like, "Hey, Cyril, what's up?" You know? And he said, by midnight on the 26th of March, there will be a full lockdown. And obviously wine was going to be illegal, and there was just like, shit, guys, I can't tell you how I felt, but I had to basically in 2 days, get all my grapes to the cellar. We knew that they were going to lock down cellars and turn things off, so we had to get everything.
They didn't even want you to harvest your grapes.
No, we couldn't get staff anywhere, so I had 2 days I was like, cool, the Beau Constantia stuff is on the farm and we have a gate to the cellar that we make the wine. Maybe we can figure that out. But all the Panama stuff and make it a different cellar. And everyone was panic picking. I picked all my grapes. I mean, I had family and friends and everyone cruising around like little Walter Whites, like doing the thing with trailers. We were putting down grapes in our tasting room with the aircon at like 16 degrees Celsius. It was stupid. I really felt that, you know, the wine industry and my career as I knew it was done. And got to the cellar with all of these grapes, with like everyone in the family and friends picking and driving it in little trailers and whatever they could fit in their boots and stuff. And there was one open tank. It was a concrete fermenter. It wasn't supposed to be a skin ferment. There was no crusher or destemmer, and I just went back to what I did in Chateauneuf de Pape, which was back against the wall. Things arrive in the cellar, and you have to think creatively. So all of the grape varieties ended up going into the same concrete open top fermenter on the skins.
And you fermented in the same.
Just they fermented all together, and press was. Yeah, there was 21 days of hard lockdown. We were figuring stuff out, and that's what's got the CVSA wine sticker on the top. And it's a wine that made me.
So if you look, guys who've ordered the wine, it was called the Chenin Black. I labeled it as Chenin Black. It says CVSA wine. Is that because you were fighting against COVID?
Yeah, so that's the thing. So CVSA wine is obviously a hashtag throughout the whole prohibition,
Yes,
and it was just my little, sorry to say this, but my little fuck you to the whole thing. A blanket ban is never a good idea.
Ever.
Obviously, all of the very much taxable income and all of the wine sales that could have been controlled just went straight into the illicit trade. The illicit trade is now a 40 billion rand industry. That's a story for a different day. But
you can't fight that
yeah,
anymore.
you can't, you know.
And you lost all that. Remember, we spoke about the on trade from the hospitality and tourism.
Just everything. And then, you know, you thought that you could do exports, but the harbors were all completely backlogged, and it just wasn't working. So, anyways, this wine was fermenting on the skins, and after fermentation, everything settled. I pulled it off the skins. We pressed the skins, left the tank dirty, put it back onto the gross lees. And then when we released the wine a couple of months later, I thought my career was really over, because now the wine industry was back in swing and the wine was terrible.
You could come back to marketing.
Yeah, well, God, market what? So essentially, you know, I thought that I really messed up. And as with red wines that need time for tannins to bind and soften out, you know, we gave the creative batch 10 months of bottle, and all of a sudden, I mean, I remember tasting it every month, and all of a sudden, the one night I pulled it, and I was sort of defeated by that point, just doing my monthly thing, tasting the wine. And there was this moment where I tasted this wine, and I just thought, this has to be the bottle. And I pulled another bottle, and I just was crying and like drinking this wine.
It was good.
It was great.
Okay,
It was
fine.
great. That's why I still work.
No, I watched a movie about the French. It was that in the Californians, and they were crying, but it was because it was.
But then they also won the World Cup.
But they did win. It was.
Yeah,
It was called Bottle Shop.
Bottle Shop. Yeah, and they made that orange wine that completely got consumed by oxygen, and they went back to being stable. And they didn't need the sulfur because it got consumed by oxygen and then became naturally stable because it couldn't take up more oxygen in bottle time, and it's Bottle Shop. So yeah, so it's in Bottle Shop, and yeah, we tasted it, and now it's a thing that I have to reproduce every year because it's something that just does really well. We put the crown cap on the top because so now we're fine tuning it, but I put the crown cap on the top as a warning sign, because I think if anyone had to open a Constantia cork bottle and taste it, the creative batch, they would think that it's faulty, but now it can be appreciated as something like a craft beer. And again, we've got lots to learn from the craft beer industry, and it's been a really fun, it's been a fun journey. So the creative batch was born, and I kept my job, and the wine industry is back on track, and yeah, it's a story that we keep writing to this day.
Thanks so much thanks. I just want to say, Megan, thanks so much. She has given us, for whoever bought that box of wine, I promise you, the quality is a lot higher than the price point.
Yeah.
So I would like to thank you so much for that.
Cheers.
That is amazing. And then even more amazing is just having you here, tell the stories. We can sit here, we can chat, we can ramble.
Yeah.
And this is what, for me, Story Cellars is about. Because it means that for those who are listening, can learn a little bit more than what you can Google.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit more personal. I love the hybrid setup.
It's cool. Can we flip the screen and show people what's happening on the other side of the table?
Hey guys, none of these people are wearing pants.
Hello.
Anyway, that's it. So thanks everyone.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks everyone who zoomed in. Thanks, Max. That was amazing.